Welcome back to another episode of Boom or Bust, your home for NFL Draft Talk. I'm your host, Terry, and today we're talking about Denzel Ward and Josh Jackson. So, as I've mentioned earlier this year, we just kind of had a lack of tape. Unfortunately, with, things going on with different sites and people. And you know what? I can't complain too much. When I started this thing out, there was nobody breaking down actual tape. It was just highlights, but as an evaluator, you got to see full tape, the good and the bad. And so the people and the sites that started to do it and, continue to do what they can, I appreciate them. I shout out to them. I know that one of the popular sites that I use shut down this year, so it's been harder to get tape. But, typically with the NFL draft season, more tape comes out as we get closer to the draft. So I say all this to say that for the corners, it was a significant amount of players I was not able to fully evaluate. Of course, Ward and Josh are the two top corners, so they had tape. But I'm talking about there's 8 to 10 corners that I was not able to evaluate. So instead of trying to force in the handful that I actually did watch, I figured we focus just on Ward and Josh, who are the two top prospects. And then once I get through round 2 of my evaluations, I should have more cornerbacks that I can speak about. So let's get into it head to head. We got Denzel Ward first coming out of Ohio State. Now, Ohio State had a pretty it's tough to say. They definitely had 2 corners that came out last year as first rounders. To say how they did, Marshawn was a star, and Marshawn Lattimore for the Saints, and then Gayon Conley for the Raiders didn't do too much. So it was, we can't say they both did great, but I think Marshawn did so well that it's just like, yeah, let's get Ohio State corners. But anyway, if you watch those 2 coming out, Denzel's going to look a lot like them. The system's the same with Greg Schiano. They play a lot of press man coverage, and they play a lot of bail technique, which if you watch a game, you see a corner's pressed up to the line. Then at the snap of the ball, he just kind of turns his hips and starts running back sideways. That's called bail coverage. I absolutely hate bail coverage, especially press bail. You can bail out of off coverage, but I don't want to get too technical. I hate bail coverage because a lot of times you're looking at the quarterback and not the receiver. So you're basically dropping into a deep zone. But if they run a curl route or stop or come back or in or out, you are nowhere in position to make a play on the ball. So I don't know why Ohio State does it. I hate it. I hated it last year, but that's what they do. So you really got to watch those man coverage snaps when Ward is playing man. And that's where Marshawn really stood out last year. And a lot of people saw the talent that he had. And then, of course, his workouts in the offseason solidified it. So Denzel, different size. Marshawn's a bigger dude. Now, Denzel is almost 200 pounds. He's not super small, but he's 5'10". We'll see what he measures in at the combine, but he's a shorter corner than you want. And his arm length is going to be important too, but looking at tape, it doesn't seem like he has freakishly long arms. So you're talking about a shorter corner, still built pretty nicely, but really fast as well. The thing with Ward that you'll get that you didn't get with Conley or Marshawn is probably some premium speed. At least film wise, that's what we see. We'll see in the combine now. Marshawn went in a 4.3, which is super fast, of course, but more of a long leg strider. This Denzel's more of a quicker guy and a little bit more agile. So he should run in the 4.3s is what we're expecting. So he's a little bit more of a burner than Marshawn Lattimore is with more quick explosions. So either way, as far as what he did in college, we said they play a lot of man coverage. They don't jam a lot. So not sure his ability to press the receivers that way. But what he did do is mirror routes like most man corners do in college. And I thought he was great in man coverage. He can mirror those routes. Now, the one thing I would say with his routes is that he didn't look great on routes that were in breaking. So routes that broke to the middle of the field, like a slant or in or whatever, a slug or whatever. I felt like he reacted a little slower to those, and a lot of the times he was behind the ball. And I think as fast as he is, he could have been on top of those routes a little more than he actually was. So that's one thing I noticed, but I still love him in man coverage overall, just because of, again, that speed, and he does have really good athleticism where he can move his hips and run routes with a receiver. Now, the other thing about Ward that people are kind of giving him a plus about is his ability to help in the run game. Now, I think he's good. I don't think he's great in the run game, but he is very physical for his size and for his position. You rarely see corners that, when they do make a play, are as physical and hard hitting as Denzel Ward is. But the other parts of his run game, as far as getting off blocks and maintaining his lane, he's not that great at it. He pretty much leaves his run fit a lot of the time. So a corner is responsible for what's called the force. They're the widest guy to the sideline. So in the run game, your job is to force the ball back to the middle where the rest of the defense is. And so if you got a corner that's fighting inside or, knifing inside to the play, that's when you have backs that bounce it outside and are able to make yards, because the corners got to be there to maintain. So most of us know A gap, B gap, whatever. Those are the front's jobs. But as a corner, your job is that force player. You the widest man, so you got to stay and hold your lane. But Denzel kind of chases the ball. He doesn't hold that lane. He abandons it a lot, and that could be coached, of course. But I think he is physical. I'll give him that. But I think his overall run game can improve. So then the biggest thing with Denzel for me that is my knock for him is that he face guards a lot. And I haven't seen him track the ball. Now, that doesn't mean he can't track the ball, but I just didn't see him do it. So face guarding, meaning when he's in man coverage on a deep route and the ball goes in the air, instead of getting his head around to locate the ball, make a play, he stares at the receiver and tries to make a play through his hands. Now, in the NFL, we see face guarding penalties. That is a penalty. And more times than not, you're going to interfere because you don't know the time. And so you think you are timing it well, but the ball might not be there yet, and now it's interference. So that worries me, because that's something that can be coached out of a player. I've seen, players get better at it. However, it really depends. It's not an automatic thing. Some players never get good at it, and even if they get better at getting their head around, they don't track the ball well because they're so used to staring down the receiver. And so you get a guy like Ward on a downfield play, a 50-50 ball, you're talking about a guy that could possibly be a PI machine at the next level if he doesn't start learning to get his head around. And then you look at his interception numbers and look at the interceptions he got this year. Like, those were, I wouldn't say lucky, but I don't want to say lucky, but he was fortunate to get those, because he can't make plays on the ball because he's not looking for the ball. And then, like, there was one interception where he turned around late because he thought the play was over and reacted fast enough to get the ball. So that was nice. But it's like, okay, you want to be a bigger time corner, you got to start being able to make plays on the ball, and you only can do that if you get your eyes in the right place. But as far as gradable traits for a corner, I do COD, change of direction. I do long speed, which is not going backwards, but of course when they turn around, an ability to cover vertical, just like a 40, how fast are you? And then we got ball skills, so that's the same thing like a receiver, ability to go up and get it, the ability to high point the ball, to track the ball, the ability to play through a receiver's hands, hand-eye coordination, all those different things. So I gave him a 4.5, change of direction. Like I said, very fluid athlete. 4.5 long speed is my guess. Now, corners, as I'll talk about later, is one of those positions that you really want to see the 40 to get a true sense, because most of the time when you're watching corners, you don't always get to see them in a straight line speed. And so the 40 is a big thing for them. And then I gave him a level 4 ball skills. Now, the one good thing about him face guarding is he is pretty experienced at playing through a receiver's hands, meaning knocking the ball out, making sure that he's fighting to get the ball incomplete all the way through the process and timing that pretty well. But, of course, we want him to get better at getting his head around. Now, he does have some explosion. We think he'll be able to have a very nice vert. And so he's an overall supreme athlete, is what he's being touted as. And more times than not, a man coverage corner is just that, a supreme athlete. So we will get to see if that matches up on the next level. But I think the biggest knock for most people is going to be his size. And then the biggest knock for me is his ability to track the ball and not interfere. Okay, so going through Josh Jackson. Now, there's a lot to like about Josh Jackson. Well, I'll get to that first. I'll just talk about what I like. So Josh was very different. In college, defenses can be a lot more simplistic. Like in Ohio State, we line up, we do what we do. Iowa was a little different. They ran a good amount of cover 3. So Josh was in deep off coverage a lot, but they did a lot of different things. So you've seen him impress. We've seen him line up off the receiver. We've seen him do bail coverage. Now, he press bail, kind of like I was talking about, but then there's off bail. So let's say you line up 5 yards off the receiver and then you bail. Like I said, you turn your hips and start moving. But that one's a little better because you got more space to see the receiver. And so if they make a shorter route or a break on the ball, you have an ability to plant and go. And so that's something we didn't see with Denzel, but that's more of a scheme. And that's kind of him getting his eyes on the receiver instead of the quarterback. But he played zone, he played man, so very experienced in a different amount of coverages. And he's a bigger, longer guy, so he's 6'1", 192, so weighs about the same as Denzel, but got some inches on him. I love him, man. I really love him. So the thing about Josh is he's the exact opposite of Denzel Ward. Josh actually excels at breaking on the ball and tracking the ball. So excuse me. When we're talking about man coverage, he plays man, of course, like I said, he mirrors the routes. He's not a press corner, so he's not jamming and, trying to stop the receiver. He mirrors the routes. He runs with them. But when they make a break, he immediately gets his head to the quarterback instead of just watching the receiver, because they know that when the receiver makes the break, that's when, if the ball's coming to him, that's when the ball should be on its way. And so instead of watching the receiver and trying to break the pass up, he gets his eyes up, looks for the ball, and that's how he jumped so many interceptions and or so many passes and intercepted them. And another thing he does in man coverage is he uses his leverage very well. He understands exactly if we're playing too deep, or if we're playing two man, or if we're playing single high, or if we're playing some type of combination coverage. He understands exactly where his linebackers and safeties are going to be. And so he lines up and he dictates where the receiver can go. And so the receiver knows their routes, but they also see, the support the corner has. And so Josh pretty much lines up in the only place that you can go, and that way he's already on top of your route a lot of the time. So that showed a very high awareness and scheme that I really liked, and he really did force receivers into bad areas. And then as a zone coverage, again, not only the ability to see the ball, but his timing and his break on the ball is great. He drives on it very hard. He can plant and really get to the ball fast. He baited quarterbacks that way. by not jumping the route so fast, so the quarterback's okay, I'm not going there. He'll sag off a little bit till the quarterback gets ready to pull it, and then he makes his break, and his timing just works out so well. And again, he understands the concepts in zone. And that's one of the things, like, you got guys that break their assignment in zone, and that's how big plays happen, busting coverage. He understands what a help is. He understands what he's covering. He understands when nobody's in his zone and he can go help on somebody else. He really is a high level when it comes to the defensive concepts, and that's something that I love to see out of any player, but especially in the secondary. As far as run support, I think he'll hit. He's not one of them scared corners. I think he maintains the force. He understands kind of where he needs to be, but I don't like him on blocks. He gets blocked out of the play really easily, and so that's something he's going to have to work on. But he does kind of fight to stay in the force, which I like. As far as change direction, gave him level 5. I think he extremely athletic. His long speed, now that's the real question. That's the one everybody's waiting to see in the combine. Sorry, because with corners, of course, you could play off if you're not as fast, but then you got to give up the underneath stuff. And if you want to play press and go in physical face to face, you got to have long speed. Otherwise, you're gonna get burnt. So that's the one everybody's looking at. I gave him a level 4. Again, not every time do you get to see players in a situation where they got a straight sprint, so it's hard to say. But I would tend to think he's 4.5. I don't think he's going to be in a 4.3. I think he'll be mid 4.4s. I think there'll be plenty fine for people. If he goes in the 4.3s, then people are really going to having some conversations about Josh. And then I gave him level 5 ball skills. He intercepted the ball everywhere. You're talking about breaking on the ball, which some people get confused with ball skills. You get interceptions, yes, you see the number, but how did they get them? Did they break on the pass, rob it, and take it to the house? Nice. Or like Josh Jackson sometimes, where he's with a receiver on the 50-50 ball and he goes up and he wins that catch. That's something that is an added skill. So he's explosive. He tracks the ball well in the air. He knows where it is. He showed great hands. I'm sure we saw that one-handed interception. I wouldn't be surprised if he measures out with big hands. And so his ball skills, I gave him a level 5. So you're talking about some really high ratings for a corner. So looking at it overall with Josh Jackson, though, here's the key part, is that this was really his first year starting as a defensive or as a corner. And so those are the questions people are going to start to ask. He was kind of a converted hybrid between receiver and corner, and he never really was a starter for the team until this year. And he actually wasn't slotted to play corner until they had some type of injuries, and because they were really trying to get him at receiver. And that also kind of shows the ability that he might have with the ball skills. But he played corner, went to corner for them, and you saw the results. So here's my thing. It's a two-sided conversation, because when you talk about a player that is kind of young in their position, the downside is, okay, was this a fluke or, whatnot? We didn't see the production over a consistent time. True. But the other thing is they tend to be a lot smarter, because when you got guys that's been doing it for a while and are great athletes or whatever, they just kind of, I'm going to do my thing. But when you got guys that are newer to the position, they listen a lot more and they study a lot harder. The example that you can best look at is TJ Watt from last year, where he had been an outside linebacker for, as a starter for one season or so, converted from a tight end. And so those are the players that tend to focus more on the details. And if you watch Josh, it's apparent he plays it textbook, as opposed to a Denzel Ward or someone that's just kind of balling out. Let me go out there and ball out. But this guy, Josh, is actually out there doing what he's taught and doing the textbook things. Now, the scheme is different, of course, but Josh pays attention to the details. And so that's kind of the two-headed coin you got with them. So overall, I mean, if you ask me, I'm Josh Jackson all the way. There's pretty much the ceiling versus the floor. People who want to see a guy with a lot of potential. Some people want to see people with skills right now. And then there's the athlete versus the technician. So it's kind of a classic battle right now. Now, I still think Josh is going to surprise in the combine. But overall, you would think Denzel's the better athlete. So it kind of goes to your philosophy. For me, it's always guys with the skills. That, to me, carries a lot more weight, and it's a lot more long-term than being just a great athlete. So, it's tough. You just got to know the kid. Denzel, it really depends on how he is as a player or as a person. Is he coachable? Is he going to put in that work? Because it's not going to be line up and play man and bail like it was in Ohio State. So is he willing to put in that work? And, I mean, some people want to base his potential off Marshawn Lattimore. I don't think you can do that. Those are different players, and he probably won't be in the same scheme as Marshawn. So, I don't know. You got to just really do your homework. But for me, I like Josh Jackson a little more. And I think, honestly, at this point, him and Denzel are right around the same area as far as the draft. I think if you say Denzel can be top 10, then I don't see why Josh Jackson wouldn't be able to be top 10. The production numbers he had this year can't be ignored, in my opinion. You look at what he did number wise, but look at how he did it. It's absolutely ridiculous for me. So those are my thoughts. But I would like to hear what you guys think. Go to the comment section. What do you think about Ward? What do you think about Jackson? Do you got one over the other? Or do you think they're similar? Do you think they're completely different players? Let me know. Go to the comment section, comment around, share it around, thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for listening.